Hey y'all, and welcome back to another video of My Creative Life with Kelssweetie, where we read books and we make art. Today we are going over my Q1 recap. I don't usually do a Q1, Q2, any sort of recap, to be honest, but I've been seeing this go around, and to my first Q1, my first 3 months of this year have been arguably pretty good. Um, Both on the fact that I've started reading physically again. I've read a lot of audiobooks that were really amazing. I've had some really bad books, but for the most part, I've had some really amazing books for the most part. Even looking back at my overall average rating score, it was really pretty high, to be honest. And I figured, let's see. Let's do a Q1. If Q2 goes downhill, then we did a Q1. At least we got another video out of it. But yeah, today we're going to go over my stats. I'm like looking at my notes. My stats, my videos, favorites and hates, because it's not even dislikes. The ones that I've not liked this last Q1 are ones that I have truly not liked. And final thoughts kind of going into Q2 and everything. So let's get into it on the other side of the intro. As I mentioned, I don't usually do recaps. It's not that I don't feel like they're necessary or good. One, I usually don't read enough for me to feel like a recap could be possible, like a really good average rating or anything like that. And I usually only read audiobooks. This is the first year in a while that I've solely brought back some physical reads every now and then. And I don't know, I just didn't feel like it was meant for the stuff that I was putting out and how I was reading. This last quarter, though, I've really kind of changed how I approach my reading, not necessarily in how I organize my TBR, but, well, kind of in the way that I've approached organizing my TBR. So I felt like maybe having some review of what the last 3 months have been would be really interesting, because a lot has kind of changed from how I've been reading the last 2 years since I really got back into reading. So yeah, I wanted to, also I've been using Fable. That was a huge change this year, making the change to Fable. Now I use Goodreads only because I do like the idea of having some idea of, oh, you're one book behind or 3 books ahead or whatever the case is, to stay on schedule for your goal. Fable doesn't do that really. It kind of talks about it in the way of, if you wanted to reach your goal, you're on track to reach your goal by December or November or January or whatever, but I need like a specific number. And I know why it's done that way. I know some people hate that feature of Goodreads, that it gives them a lot of anxiety. These are the same people who read hundreds of books every year and set their reading goal at 12 just because it takes the pressure off. And I completely think that that's valid. But as for me, who's very goal oriented based, I can't leave it up to chance of just, oh, it'll be finished in December. I kind of have to have a running tally of how many books I may be behind or ahead or whatever. Currently, I am apparently 2 books ahead of schedule, which makes me feel good, because then it lets some of the anxiety off personally on finishing some books that I need to read, or maybe putting in another book that may not be on my TBR. Whatever the case is, if it was behind, I would kind of have to like reevaluate and go, okay, what's happening that I'm not really reading? It personally doesn't give me that much anxiety. As somebody who has not reached their reading goal, I think ever, no, that's a lie. Last year, I think I didn't reach my reading goal. I was like 1 or 2 books off, and the year before that, I barely reached it by like a book. So I don't really take it very seriously. It's nice, and it's always nice to try and, like, up what I read last year just as a fun game, but I don't take it seriously enough to have a ton of anxiety, like serious anxiety about it. Let's go over my stats. That was the whole intro for me to say I now have stats. I never really had stats before, and now I have stats. Let's talk about my stats. Books read. Books that I've read so far this Q1 was 18. I've read 18 books. I thought it was 17, and then I forgot to do a review on something, it upped it to 18, which is really great. That averages me at around 6 books a month. That was quick math for me, which is really great for me. I usually, especially last year, I was averaging probably around 4 on a good month, 5 books a month. And keep in mind that a lot of that was January being such a great month. I don't know what I was on in January, if it was coming off the holidays and just feeling really inspired to read or what, but I read my best reading month was January. I read 7 books, which is more than I ever read, period. But I feel like every month since then has been pretty much good, either around 6 or 5 or so books. Last month still ended up being pretty good, all things considered, that I basically didn't read for a whole week and I still knocked out about 5 books, and 2 of those were physical novels. So I'm still counting it as a win. My average rating was a 3.8. I was going through some of my ratings. One, this is another thing that I do appreciate about Fable, is that you can do quarter. Like, oh, it's 3.25, it's 3.5, it's 3.75, or something along those lines as far as a rating. It just makes me feel a little bit better about how I'm rating things. And now I've incorporated that even into like when I post my reviews on Instagram, or even when I talk about them on here. It's just some things aren't a full half. And I don't even think Goodreads allows you to even do the half. It's either a full or a not full. And I don't work at absolutes.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
So I feel like I appreciate that as well. And because of that, I can get a little bit of a clearer rating on what my average is, which a 3.8 is really great so far for the year. That's nearing a 4. So all things considered, I'm doing good. I was looking through a lot of my stuff. I'm hitting a lot of 4s, a lot of 3.5s for the most part. I've had, I think, maybe 2 5 stars. And again, I think that quarter, like that movement of the star rating, really allows me to kind of give some leeway to be like, this was more of a 4.3 or what, the 0.75 or whatever, just because this one thing at the end really didn't sit well with me. So it's not a full 5, but all intents and purposes, when I go into Goodreads to mark it, it's a 5. Another stat that I have aren't from Fable, but more so just for me tracking. I had TBR versus library based off of some other people who have done this, and I realized that I basically use both in tandem, which I'm very proud of. I just kind of wanted to put, even though like there's not really a stat for this, I'm just proud of it. I pretty much, all of my audiobooks, I don't buy audiobooks. I recently bought an audiobook for the first time because there was no way around it, and it was going directly to the creator. I'll talk about that during my April wrap up, but other than that, all of the audiobooks that I read, they're all through Libby, which is all through my library. And I'm very, very proud of that. I am extremely proud that I'm using my library like nobody's business, and I'm constantly telling other people, pick up Libby, and everything. I think that it's so usable and obtainable, and it makes the process so much easier. I think a lot of people think that they have to go into their local library, which would be amazing because I've gone to the local library a couple of times recently, and every time is such a magical experience, and more people need to be going to their libraries. But all that being said, all of my audiobooks are all checked out from the library, and all of my books that I've been reading this last year have all been off of my physical TBR, which I really, really love. I love that I have been, it's not that I'm on a book buying ban, that was never going to happen. But what I have been doing is that planning out my TBR a quarter or so in advance, a couple of months in advance. Like I have these little book piles. I have 3 down here for the upcoming 3 months, and then, well, this month, and then the next 2 months, and then I have 2 over in my physical TBR corner as well. And that has been helpful for me to better understand, one, what do I have? What do I have room for? But also, having this physical TBR shelf corner has allowed me, when a month comes up, that especially when it's celebrating something, I can just go, what do I already have? And I don't have to go searching through my stuff digitally and everything, but I can just look at what I already have and read it. It's not hard for me to stick to that because obviously I bought those books for a reason. So for me, I'm just kind of like, oh, I still want to read those books. And I'm not huge on trying to keep up with people and what they're reading. I read a lot of backlist, and that's not a problem for me, especially when I mix in a lot of new releases with that backlist and everything. And that was something that I also did this year is Barnes & Noble had their new releases sale, and I actually pre-ordered books. I've never pre-ordered books. I think that that's something I'm going to start doing. At the top of the year, when the pre-order sale goes on and everything, I think buying a couple of books that will come in the mail throughout the year, it's like little treats, like that past you has bought for yourself, as well as I can easily kind of place them into places where it makes sense. Like I for this upcoming month, I got The Blob and Sacrificial Animals. While I know everyone in the world has already read The Blob, I don't have a problem with waiting to read something when it's needed. That's not an issue for me, and so I don't really stress too much about that. Same thing with, like, this month I'm reading The Unworthy. Everyone in the world has already read the book, but personally, I'm not too stressed about it. I'm gonna read it now. And I think that has to, again, go back to what I was talking about regarding like stats and Fable and versus Goodreads, and like that stress or anxiety you may have when trying to finish something on time. That's not where my stress and anxiety lies, and so it doesn't really give me that much anxiety to kind of have to wait to read something. And I think that I really like what I'm doing because I don't feel like I have myself on timeout. I can still buy books because visually I can see if there's space. If there's space, then okay, fine. If there's not, you don't buy them. As opposed to kind of not seeing them or mixing them in with the rest of my library corner, my book nook. I think that by mixing them in, you don't have a clear consensus on what you have. But by having them all basically in one spot, I can go, yeah, don't buy any more books. I don't know. I shared that because I feel like a lot of people are going on book buying bans, and I understand it. But I'm also at odds with that because on the other side of the spectrum, there are plenty of people who are going, you need to stock up on your physical media because of where we are right now as a society, as a country. They're getting rid of libraries left and right. They're banning books left and right. They're getting rid of literature. Having physical media is more important than ever. And so it's a lot of mixed signals going about. And personally, I have always wanted to build my library. So as long as I'm not putting myself into debt, I'm going to continue buying books. But that's a whole nother conversation. Some of y'all don't know how to budget. So that was really long, but I was really just wanted to talk about like how proud I am to kind of be mixing both reading on my physical TBR, having a plan in place on how to buy for my physical TBR, and using it in tandem with my library. I think that that's really the big thing in this conversation of overconsumption and having these hobbies that deal in capitalism, is really learning how to plan properly and move in between these things that aren't absolutes. And I'm just really proud of how that's been because I feel really good every time like I'm buying a book or I'm getting something from the library or I find something at a thrift store. Oh my God, utilize your thrift stores. People are always doing unhauls. I found so many, like I found recently a homegoing hardcover. Never seen this cover ever. It's gorgeous. It is amazing. And I picked it up immediately at the thrift store recently and it was $4. There's so much at the thrift store. People are constantly unhauling books they either don't have space for or they did not like, and it may be your new favorite book. And so many of my books now are either I found them in a thrift store, like The Handmaid's Tale, I found that at a thrift store. World War Z, I found it in a thrift store. What else is up here that I found in a thrift store? The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, I found like a perfect copy at the store. A lot of these are really good copies. Almost all of my Jenny Han To All the Boys I Loved, I found at a thrift store. There was only one that I didn't, and I ended up having to buy it because I got obsessed with the series. And also finding classic editions of books that you really love. I've been slowly chipping away at like buying up books from my childhood that I really loved, like Holes. I have two versions of The Color Purple. One is a special edition that is gorgeous. And then one is my original edition that I read from, like Water for Chocolate, Disappearing Acts. I cannot tell you enough that people are not utilizing their thrift stores enough, and people are, because reading has gone up in popularity, people are also unhauling books more and more because they're either not liking those books or whatever the case is, or they don't have room for it, or whatever the case is. Go check out your thrift stores. Use your libraries. And when it comes to buying new books, just budget. Just budget. Okay, that was so much. And I don't know how my Q1 wrap up turned into a how to save money and properly like work within a hobby that deals in capitalism in a better world. But we ended up doing that. Let's move on. Speaking of using my TBR and library in tandem, audio versus physical. I have brought back reading physically. I'm very proud. I'm going to put out, I think it's already out. I don't know. My schedule's all over the place when it comes to like the vlogs that I'm putting out, to be honest. But I think by the time this video comes out, my reading vlog will be out. Basically, in that reading vlog, I speak about the fact that I need to get more cardio in. I don't like running, but I have learned from like past, like me getting back into shape and stuff, that walking is still just enough cardio. You just need to be moving your body and getting your steps in. As somebody who has a job and makes content and stuff that all requires me sitting down, it is very hard for me to get my steps in. But I found I need to maybe bundle, and I used to do this a lot. So I've started physically reading my books while walking around the house, and it's been really, really great and really useful. Even doing 30 minutes or 30-minute increments, I'm knocking out 4 to 5K steps, which is amazing. And I get to finally read these physical books that have not had audio, which has been an issue in the past, where I'll pick up especially something that's indie or anything, and I can't end up reading it. Not saying that I'm gonna all of a sudden become a physical reader. I'm truly just too busy to become a physical reader. Audiobook has really, really helped me get into reading because of how much I'm just moving constantly. And I really do love audiobooks. So I'm not saying that, but I have reintegrated physical reading, which is amazing. In January, I did not read any physical books because I wasn't into the whole idea of physically reading yet. However, February is when it kind of started, and I read my Sweet Read book club pick for that month. They did not have an audio because it's an indie author. It was Flowers from the Void. Flowers into the Void or Flowers from the Void? Flowers from the Void by Gianni Washington. I read that one physically, and it was fine. I think really some books it would be great to have audio for. Like you read a book and you're just like, this needs audio. But it was fine, and it was good. And I luckily found some audiobooks for a couple of other things that I had, but I had all intentions of reading them physically. Last month, I had 2 physical reads, which was amazing, and I kind of thought that I put a lot on my plate trying to do that, but somehow I achieved it. It was Girl Interrupted and Reservoir Bitches, and I was really impressed because both of those books were extremely moving for me, especially Reservoir Bitches. That book broke me to pieces, and it didn't have an audio, and to be honest, I'm kind of happy that it didn't. It was a lot in that book, and I think, yeah, just reading it physically was just a better experience to combat what I just said a moment earlier, where I said, sometimes you read a book and it feels like an audio is necessary. So this month I have a plan. I mean, this isn't Q1, but this month I have 2 books. One for sure is a physical read. The other one, it's really up to whether or not my audiobook comes in time. We will ultimately see. I'm not sure. But those are my stats from Q1. Let's get into my favorites and my hates. So I said my faves and my hates because, to be honest with you, there's not a dislike. To be honest, my hates for this last quarter were definitely hates. Like, I just absolutely could not stand these books. We will start there, and then we'll end it on the positive note. First and foremost was Cleopatra and Frankenstein, which was my first book of the entire year. I could not stand the people in this novel. recently I've heard a lot of people who I would never imagine actually like this book say that this was a good book, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. Everyone in it was so vapid, and they were the worst parts of like just a capitalist type society and being numb to society and really anything that's going on within it. Like this friend group really didn't care what was truly going on. It felt like, and the main characters who were people of color, there were only two, I want to say maybe three. One's an asterisk because they were the side character of a side character, to be honest. They all were very flat. Like you couldn't have told they were people of color unless, which is what the author did, they told you that they were people of color. Reading them, you could not tell that. One of them was a mixed black girl, and she was struggling with some of that identity, but it wasn't enthralling. It didn't sound like a mixed black girl who was dealing with those things. I don't feel like the author's a white woman. I don't feel like the author truly spoke to others about what that experience is. I think she assumed of what it was. Another friend he was an immigrant, Santiago, and he was Latino. But again, I didn't get that really from him, and he was dealing with a lot of fat phobia from himself and from others in his friend group and all of that, which was, it was annoying to kind of read about, and I was frustrated for him, but not frustrated in the way that I felt for him and I felt his frustration, but more so I was frustrated towards him. The love of his life ended up strung out on drugs, and she was a black woman, which again, it just didn't, none of these stories, I feel like they were supposed to be heartfelt, and all of them were annoying. Everybody was annoying and frustrating, and our main characters, Cleopatra and Frank and Cleo, horrible people. I think near the end I started to feel for Cleo and some of her monologues and thought processes that she was going through. I kind of started to feel for, and they started to get introspective, but they really, it was a big if. It was just kind of okay. And when I finished reading, I did not feel anything whatsoever. I was happy it was over. It just kind of to me felt like this is somebody who wanted to write a group of people who were interesting, and instead you really wrote a group of people who were extremely vapid, and not interesting vapid. As I'm always saying, you do not, I don't have to like the character you write, but at least make them interesting, at least make me want to read about them. And I kept reading hoping that I was going to get what everybody else got, and because it was my first read of the year, I was being really being really, really hard-headed and wouldn't put it down. So that was one of my first, like, I hated them. I think I ended up giving it like a 2 because I was just getting the ball rolling. Going back, I'd give it a 1.5 maybe. And again, a lot of that half portions or that star is because of Cleo and some of her introspection near the end of the book that felt at least real. The second book that I hated was The Cabin at the End of the World. I hated that book. I've watched the movie, and the movie's fine. I think that the idea of the book is also a really good idea. This is my second Paul Tremblay that I did not like. I'm pretty positive I'm just not going to give Paul Tremblay any more of my money. Luckily, I thrifted that book, so he didn't really get my money on that one, but I hated the main characters. I thought that they went about their decisions extremely selfishly in a way that didn't make sense for them. I think that the ending was, I just, to go through the entire book, hating one of these characters, not understanding the other, and a lot of the decisions being made just not making sense in any sort of way. And then to get it to the end, which is this culmination of, is the world ending? Is it not? Who can we save? Blah, blah, blah. And the decision that was made was a very weak one. And I don't like saying that because I feel like the reason was very emotional, and there's nothing weak about being emotional. However, it was weak in moral fiber. It was very weak in the conversation of, that is all it took. In the end, a couple of words from this person who's supposed to be your significant other made you change your mind on that. And even the significant other sitting here talking you into it in the first place. It was just extremely, extremely selfish. This is my second Paul Tremblay book. Of course, I didn't keep it because I hated it. It was the Pallbearers Club. And again, our main character was so selfish and making decisions that made no sense. Even in the conversation of being mentally messed up or just like having issues with a lot of this, it did not make sense to me. And I just, it upset me. It frustrated me. It upset me in ways that it wasn't even related to the actual story of the book or message of the book, just completely being frustrated at who these people were. So those are my hates of the year, and luckily I haven't really had anything else other than those that I hate. I've had a couple that aren't like amazing favorites or anything, but those I already got rid of Cleopatra. I was so upset with it because I ended up donating some other things, and I just was like, oh, I'm throwing that in the pile. I'm already going. But when the time comes, Cabin at the End of the World is getting donated for sure. I just was not happy with it. And again, it was upsetting because I think that the premise was really interesting, but the characters just weren't. But on a positive note, my favorites, I have 3 favorites, and honestly, I could probably even fit some more in there. Chain Gang All-Stars, I think, is my top favorite so far of the entire year. I absolutely loved how they went about writing this novel, how they went about talking about the prison industry complex, and how real and heart-wrenching these stories were, but how relatable all these characters were. You felt for all of them, even though, and I think that that was something very hard to do because at the end of the day, all of these people involved were criminals. Some of them did things that were absolutely horrible, but you felt for them because of caring about what was done to them, what is being done to them by being a part of these Chain Gang All-Star Games. I thought that that was beautiful while being extremely, extremely, like, just, it took the breath out of me when I finished. Throughout the book, plenty of facts are weaved throughout, and they're actual facts. And so I think that it was a great example of how to teach people and revolutionize people through fiction while giving them actual research. And it was an amazing, amazing read. It was also amazing even just in its storytelling. Like, you wanted to keep finding out what was going to happen. I loved it. I think that it was absolutely amazing. I don't really have any, like, a couple of books that have gone like maybe a 4.5 or so. It's like, oh, I just have one little note. I have no notes. Absolutely none. And I think that not only should people be, I know that this book became very popular, but one thing that I didn't notice or see very much when people were talking about how great this book was all of the abolishment to the prison industry that is throughout it, through its all of its facts that it talks about. That needs to be out there. Not enough people are talking about that, and I think that's a shame because that actually takes away from what this book is supposed to be in the first place. And I absolutely loved it. I think that's going to be something, would have to be mind-blowing in order for me to knock that out of maybe the #1 spot. These next 2 were very, very close. I think there were like minute things in them that made me go, okay, I'm just going to take it down just like a 1/4 of a point, but like very, very close. One of those was The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. This book was amazing for me. I loved it. And I think that why I loved it had nothing to do with the plot that it talks about in the synopsis, which is about this college-age girl who is dealing with the conversations of her mother and divorce and being from an immigrant family and everything, and becoming a serial killer who eats eyeballs. They tell you all of that in the synopsis, and they're like, okay, well, that's, you basically just told me the whole plot. Like, why would I still read this? The actual message in this was amazing to read, and it had to do with the conversation of the generation before us millennials, and us even before, because I think the main character is actually like Gen Z, but talking about the Gen X generation and how misogyny really failed them. How machismo failed the men, how misogyny and the male gaze failed the women of that generation, how the lack of asking, who are you? We were asked constantly, who are we? And that's why we as a generation are so obsessed with protecting our identities, because it's the strongest thing that we have. Whereas Generation X have no identity. And you will notice that a lot of people from that generation are very split, and either right now they are thriving trying to figure out what that is, or they are drowning because they have no clue where to start and are overwhelmed with the whole idea that people are obsessed with it now and they don't have one to speak of. Loved that. I hated all of these adults in her life, but I love the conversation of how valuable they were, how her mother was so obsessed with a man accepting her and taking care of her, that she literally was taking these men over her own children, over her daughters. She was changing them to better be accepted by them. She was changing herself to better be accepted by them. It was I wanted to shake her mother and just go, wake up. But also the John, I think his name is the white man who ends up being her mother's boyfriend. Of course, horrible. Of course, completely bigoted. Of course, completely misogynistic. But also, you realize during a certain portion that he has so much unhealed trauma of his own that he covers up with this machismo, with this braggadocious attitude to make him feel like he's in control. And it's very clear that he's not in control of anything, especially not his emotions, because he allows this 18-year-old girl to get underneath his skin, and he's a grown man, which is just insane to talk about, but also a very real concept, a very, very real concept for men of that generation who did not deal with their issues at all. Never mind the unseen character who is their father, who, out of this midlife crisis of identity and trying to realize their identity, but completely bulldozing everybody in their lives down in the process of trying to rediscover their identity because they're not happy. Again, just really, really amazing, and I absolutely loved it. I think it was very smart. I think it was written so well, and the idea that you could write a synopsis about a serial killing college girl who eats eyeballs, and that's not even the message that you even get out of the actual book, that you're actually blindsided by an extremely deeper premise, it was amazing. I would have given this 5 stars easily, except there was a little thing at the end in regards to our main character Ji-won that I feel like wasn't necessary. I think that it made context and stuff to a certain thing that kept on coming up in the book. But in all honesty, I feel like all of that could have been taken out entirely. That entire premise could have been taken out entirely. And I don't know if it was added. I don't want to ruin it, which is why I'm talking so. I don't think it added to anything, and I don't think that it was a necessity. And I don't know if it was added so that you could simply go, oh, maybe it was this and we can blame it on that, onto why she was the way that she was, when in the end you find out it's not. I don't know. I'm not certain. But it was only enough of a weird thing that I was like, oh, I'll take a quarter off of it or something along those lines, because it was such an amazing book. Cannot recommend it enough. It deserves all of the accolades it's been getting lately. And my third fave so far of Q1 was Reservoir Bitches. It was beautifully written, but heartbreaking. I finished that book, and I know that it put me in a little tiny, it wasn't a slump, it was just, I needed a break because of how harsh it was, how relatable it was, and such a horrible way. About these 13 different stories of femmes and their experiences and their deaths and their abuse and their lives, just simply from living in a world that it is never enough to simply just exist as a woman. It is never enough to simply kill a woman. You have to completely humiliate and ruin her as well in a lot of these stories. And I think that that was heartbreaking, but it was written so well and beautifully so that it was also very, very enlightening, in a very hard way, especially because this is very specific to women in Mexico. So again, that was also enlightening to kind of learn about these things and see where those intersections happen regarding being a woman and then being a woman in that country. So it was horribly heartbreaking, but also just extremely beautifully written. And I would recommend it truly to anybody, but with huge trigger warnings all over the place on it, because it was a lot. So those are my faves and my hates for Q1. And finally going into my videos. So I thought that this was interesting. I saw Books and Lala talk about her Q1 and looking back at some of her videos, and I thought that'd be interesting because I did kind of learn a lot about how I was filming things and what I've been doing, especially since, you know, getting off the holiday stuff, going back into my book stuff, as we kind of move towards getting back to some of the Halloween stuff and everything. I've been really interested in getting back into book recommendation on more specifically YouTube. I think that I've been doing a lot of that on my Instagram, and I love doing that, doing these cool book recommendations like with these themes and ideas and stuff, and even doing my graphics on Instagram with these concepts. Like, you know, during Women's History Month, I felt like 80s. I want to go 80s, and here's my certain color palette. And I love doing that. And even during Black History Month for February, for the I Love Black Horror challenge, I went very vintage, antique, with these like very lush reds and stuff for Valentine's Day and everything. And that was a lot of fun to do. And this upcoming month, I'm doing the Old School April Challenge, and so we're going 90s, bright Nickelodeon colors and everything, even the music that I'm choosing, and it's a lot of fun, and I feel like I need to bring that same energy to how I'm planning out my videos for YouTube. Not necessarily changing my graphics within my YouTube videos, because I'm really happy with where I kind of am now with those, because they've changed again a little bit at the top of this year. I kind of do something different. I add in the pop-ups here and there, but not as many as I used to do, which one, it was very tiring to do so many of those. And I feel like it was getting a little cluttered, to be honest, and now I kind of do something a little bit cleaner and stuff, with the synopsis sitting up there at the entire time that I'm talking about something, so that you can look at that at any time, and I just feel like I'm really happy with where that's at. But recently, my Monstrous Feminine book recs video did really well, and I had a lot of fun doing that, and I want to do more of that. I want to do more book recommendation videos, and even doing the reading vlogs. I think that I've done like one, and that one was fun, and I have another one coming up. I think that I do need to be realistic when doing those reading vlogs, because I do feel like it was very hard to kind of work through them, because I can't do 24-hour reading vlogs. It's far too much stress. I'm usually doing far too much to try and just knock out a full 24 hours of reading, to be honest. And I've realized that I need to just do reading vlogs. That's it. Another thing that I wanted to bring back, and I just haven't yet because I've been busy, is doing reading sprints. And I do want to bring those back. I truly do. But I also need to be honest with myself on what my time commitment is on doing a lot of different stuff recently, and maybe bringing them up every now and then, but doing them every month just isn't going to happen. Like, it's a time commitment, and I just can't get into that. So I will say that I really do want to get back into, I want to do more book recommendations with very interesting themes, because I feel like as I'm reading more books, I have more content, like book recommendation wise, to share. And that was another reason why I wasn't doing so many book recommendation videos, was because I wasn't reading as much. So once I told you like 5 of my top, basically that was it. I have no more to share with you. But I do feel like it would be fun to maybe go about it in a different way. So expect some of that. I think that that was really fun to do. And I think even doing the vlogs have been really fun to do, both on my Patreon and over here. So on my Patreon, I've been doing more exclusive like body doubling, in the weeds BTS type videos, and I've been enjoying doing those. One, because I just like to overshare, but also they don't need a lot of edits, and I appreciate that. I know that I like some longer videos than just a body double, but I also like kind of having a place to go back and see, like, how did I go about doing something instead of having to reverse engineer something. And I really want to keep on doing that. I really want to, you know, over there on Patreon, having more exclusive behind the scenes content that isn't as cleaned up. I tried it over here when I was just vlogging, and I found that I didn't like it as much. It felt like it wasn't really living in the right space. And now I've moved those over to my Patreon. So there's at least one Patreon exclusive video a month that goes over there. I've already put out the one for April, and that was for my old school April planning. So if you want to check that out, make sure that you go over to my Patreon. I'm still gifting my $10 tier until the end of June. That's for free, and you get a free bookmark every month, as well as every now and then another reward. But it also has a lot of behind the scenes extra videos. I plan on doing a watch list this upcoming month. You get my content calendar, which is not steadfast, but it is an idea of how I start my month and what's to come throughout the month and how I kind of plan out my month. And some people like seeing that, so go check that out if you like. It'll be down in the description box as well. Finally, my wraps and my TBRs. I am happy that I've started to kind of get a better handle on my timing, but I will say my wraps will probably always be hitting an hour. That is just, I'm proud of that because I have a lot to say about the books and I really want them to be in depth. I don't just want to start saying, oh, I like this book. Okay, next book. I just don't want to start doing that just because of the idea of trying for short attention spans. I think making it clear that my wrap-ups are going to be long videos and my TBRs and book recommendation videos are going to be shorter, I think it's agreeable. I think it's an agreeable thing that we can agree on. And I'm happy with that. I am happy though that there are videos that I've gotten under an hour, and I've started to kind of clip away at some things because I also think that, you know, sometimes it doesn't need to be an hour every time. And I think that that's also something that's been good. So I'm trying to want some more consistency on trying to do that. As I'm sitting here and looking at the timer and seeing that I'm nearing an hour right now with just this video. So I think that that's been good, and I want to continue with that and have some consistency with it as well. My Q1 thoughts. Overall, I've been really happy with my Q1 so far, both here and on Instagram, and even in the book club and everything. I think one thing I do want to focus on is providing more to my Patreon and my book club. I really want to create more conversations happening in the book club on Fable. I think it's fun to see that some people are liking the book here and there and some comments, but I really want to create more conversations. That's why I originally created the Discord. And unfortunately, I feel like the Discord isn't moving as much as it should be. I think, you know, let me know down below what you guys would like in something that's like community based, or when you join a Discord, what you really love out of something that's very community based, very conversational. That's one thing that I really wanted to build, is some place that felt like a very steadfast community. And I think that on Instagram, you know, having a comment here and there has been really great. I think here on YouTube, you guys are amazing and conversations happen in the comments, and I really love that. I think that I want to create something like that more long form, both in my Patreon and the Discord and the book club, and I'm somehow missing the mark on it. And so I would love to hear from y'all on what you all feel is like worthy or necessary on when you guys are trying to, you know, build a community, or what makes you go, like, if you do get on Discord, what makes you keep on going back to somebody's Discord, like continuously talking and everything, because I feel like I'm preempting conversation, but I'm hearing crickets. And I don't know if people just have like our Discord turned off or whatever the case is, but I want to hear from y'all. So it'd be huge help to kind of know what is it that you guys, you know, and if you're in a book club on Fable or whatever, what makes you keep on going back to that book club and commenting with other community members? If you are a part of a Discord, what makes you keep on going back into that Discord and starting conversations and feeling free enough to go, hey, I'm reading this right now, and thinking that you're going to get a response back or whatever. And even on Patreon, I have some rewards and things there, but also I know that that's by the time July hits, that's going to become a paid thing again. And what for you guys do you feel like is worth money every month? You know, for me, I think it's getting something special from that creator every month, whether it's a physical thing or information based or something along those lines. And I provide that already, but that's me. I still want to know from y'all what you think is useful for that. Those are my main places that I really want to grow and think more about going into this next part of the year, because I feel like Instagram, I'm having fun with it again. Even here on YouTube, I'm having fun with making these videos and everything again, and making content is really fun. So I think that as far as the content portion of things and creating things, I feel really good. And I think that that's great. I want to continue doing that and just kind of bring whatever that fun is that is attracting people to these other long form locations that are more community based. And I would love your help with that. So that is my Q1 wrap up. Again, I made it under an hour, y'all. I'm so proud of myself. I look at that timer and I'm like, bet, this is a challenge. So I appreciate y'all for hearing me yap for basically an hour, for close to an hour about my Q1. I hope that you guys have enjoyed the videos I've been putting out so far for the last couple of months, and that if you're following me over on Instagram, you've been loving all the content I've been putting out over there. I've been having a really good reading year so far and content creating year so far, and I feel really, really good. So I just want to continue that throughout the rest of the year, and here's to Q2 being just as fruitful and amazing and fun and all of that for both of us involved. And I hope to see y'all in the next video. Please subscribe down below if you liked today's video. If anything you heard today seemed really interesting and you want to continue seeing whatever Q2 comes from all of this, please subscribe down below and like this video. I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.